Listen up. Let's get a little personal today. Because if there's one thing that hits way too close to home for most of us, is that yearly event that make our palms sweat and maybe make us question our confidence a bit. And yes, I am talking about performance reviews. You know the drill. It's that magical time of the year when your manager and sometimes few other people that barely know what to do sit down to score your performance. Basically, it's like your annual what's your worth for the company evaluation. And most companies love to do this twice a year, mid-year and year-end, because one round of anxiety can't be enough. Now, don't get me wrong, this whole process is super common. It's done everywhere, and in some places it's even legally required. But let's be real, most people see it as a soulless, time-consuming ritual that only matters because it ties to your bonus. Because who doesn't love their motivation being tied to a spreadsheet and someone else's opinion, right? And honestly, it's not just employees that think the system is broken. Deloitte ran a survey that showed 58% of executives agree the current performance management systems don't really drive engagement or higher performance. So basically, the people running the show agree it doesn't work. And surprise, surprise, employees feel the same. Another study showed that only about 30% of workers consider their performance management system actually helps them improve. And about 40% of respondents consider that performance management system gives them clear goals, honest feedback, or even proper technology. So yeah, basically we've got a system nobody believes in, but everyone's stuck doing. Now, being honest, most of us only care about appraisals because they're tied to our bonus. Only a very small number of people actually care about them or get motivated by them because in most cases they just like looking good. And more power to them. They're just the teacher's pet somewhat. That said, some companies are trying to change things up. They're moving towards more agile systems, regular feedback sessions, quarterly, sometimes even weekly, focused on coaching instead of punishment. They're trying to get rid of that traditional, old school carrot and stick approach, instead focusing on giving people the skills, the tools, and the techniques they need in order to succeed. Some researchers even say we should look more at team performance than individual performance. And this sounds great in theory. But then the question is, how do we know who our top performers are? How do we make sure everyone's fairly compensated when the system itself allows so much subjectivity to creep in? Now, let me be clear. I am no HR or compensation and benefit expert. But I've seen firsthand just how disengaged employees can be if performance reviews are done poorly. And to be fair, I've been that disengaged employee more than once. Let me tell you a story from my early career days that left me stunned and probably with a very sour taste. So picture this. My manager goes on maternity leave and my team gets reassigned to a brand new manager. She had no formal training as a manager. So what could go wrong, right? Well, 2 weeks in and the appraisal season hits. And to be fair, nobody cared because it was always drama-free and as fair as it could get. Now, this new manager gives me a ridiculously low score under self-learning. You know, that category that's supposed to measure how proactive you are in learning new stuff by yourself or developing outside of the tools the company provides. Her comment? She showed no interest in learning from other colleagues. At this point, I realized she missed the whole self in self-learning. But lucky for me, I'm actually very good in advocating for myself. Been doing this since kindergarten. Thank you, Mom, for allowing me to say I'm not okay with having the B role reassigned just for the sake of reassigning it. But that's a story for another time. So I basically calmly tried to explain to her that I have been self-learning, gave her some examples, even brought in another colleague to testify that I was trying to learn from colleagues that were more experienced than me. But it didn't work. So I just had to escalate her to her superior. And here's where things went completely unhinged in my perspective. When I sent her manager the email showing the unfair rating, I also attached the Excel with all the comments because yes, they were using an Excel file. And she went back and literally edited my self-evaluation. Like, she changed the scores I had given myself. Yes, you heard that right. she changed my own answers. When I pointed this out via email, she completely denied it. Now, obviously, I replied with a side-by-side photo of the initial evaluation and the Excel file she sent. And guess what? Her response? Well, even so, my evaluation stands. At this point, I was half expecting it to be a joke, and honestly, I think it would have been better if it was a joke. I called her superior, and I even asked her directly, is this a prank that you're playing on me? Long story short, her boss fixed the situation slightly. She called in my initial manager, the one that was on maternity leave, just to sit in my evaluation and to score me what I considered a fair score. And with that, they took Miss Chaos completely out of the process. Problem solved? Well, not exactly. Because while my score got fixed, the whole ordeal left a very sour, toxic taste. She was still in charge of everyone else's reviews. So basically, she got to be a manager, and I could feel the tension in the air after my experience. You probably think this is where things end, right? Guess again. Another week goes by, and she tried to apologize, or whatever she considered an apology should be. It was one of those, I want to make it look like I'm doing the right thing, while I don't exactly care about doing the right thing. So when she sent her message, I did reply telling her that unfortunately this whole story affected my motivation, affected the way I see her, affected the way I interacted with my team, and unfortunately it will forever affect our relationship because my trust in her is completely gone. Now, again, her reply, very unhinged, was either way, X person doesn't like working with you. The X person she was referencing was a senior manager, way above her grade, who I was working on a project during that time, and literally proposed me for Employee of the Month during the same month she was telling me this person doesn't like working with me. I mean, what kind of kindergarten logic is this, honestly? So yeah, moral of the story, even though people treat performance reviews as just another meeting or just another performance thing we have to do. I've even heard about people writing their own performance evaluations with ChatGPT these days. That's how little importance they're giving them. If they're done wrong, they can absolutely wreck morale and relationships. So basically, these reviews can have real long-lasting effects when handled poorly. So this brings us to the big question. How do we make individual reviews feel fair when the people doing them can be, well, subjective and human, and sometimes also very ill-equipped? Some companies are even experimenting with very complex formulas. Your own individual performance, plus your team's performance, plus your company's performance, plus maybe even your dog performance, who knows at this point. But whether that actually solves the issue or not is still up for debate. The biggest puzzle of workplaces. How do we make people motivated and happy while also ensuring that they perform properly? Personally, I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. I think people are really complicated, and what drives us changes all the time. On top of that, what drives one person will probably not drive the other. For example, I've had moments in my career when I was motivated purely by the bonus. My basic needs were totally covered, but I was either bored at my job, or I considered that environment toxic or too transactional for myself. So I became transactional as well. And there were other times, especially in the beginning of my career, when I was a total newbie, earning a newbie salary, and I was still ridiculously motivated. Not because of the money, but because I was really aiming to grow and develop myself. That drive alone kept me going. So motivation isn't static. It's situational, it's personal, and sometimes it's just about surviving the week while dreaming about your next big step. How does all of this fix the performance review problem? It doesn't-ish. Let's be honest, there's no big magic formula here. But in an ideal world, organizations would realize that team dynamics, behaviors, relation are just as important as individual performance metrics. Like, you can't expect people to perform well in a workplace where there's always tension and conflict sometimes gets shoved under the rug because management doesn't want to deal with it. So instead of focusing on who gets the biggest bonus, organizations should maybe obsess more about creating a space where issues aren't ignored. They give employees the space to speak up, even if they need to complain, and make sure that when employees do complain, they will actually be heard without just saying, we'll look into that. Because we all know what we'll look into that means. It means they will most likely never come back to you. Before you even think about raising bonuses or maybe cutting them out of spite, make the workplace fair. Make it a space where everyone can coexist without walking on eggshells. Give people a sense of purpose in what they do and help them understand why their work matters. Build a healthy dynamic, offer proper support, make sure people have the tools to do their job well, and maybe, just maybe, be a little flexible as an organization. Oh, and here's a radical idea. Pay people fairly, at least at market level. Because honestly, it is hard to be innovative or motivated if your biggest concerns are money related or getting an extra job to cover those money related issues. Both of these aspects, environment and fair compensation, actually shape behavior, loyalty, and performance. You can't pick one and ignore the other. The thing is, if you think you can boost motivation with one formal meeting that happens a few times a year, good luck with that. Performance appraisals can be useful because they give us the space to talk. However, if real conversations don't take place when they have to, those appraisal meetings just end up being awkward small talk where the manager tells you if you did good or bad and you'd probably just disengage. So yeah, that's my take. Now, I actually want to hear from you. Leave in the comments if you've had a weird performance review or maybe a surprisingly good one. And while you're at it, let me know what motivates you at work. Drop your thoughts below, hit like if this got you thinking, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into how organizations actually function, or sometimes don't. Let's keep holding workplaces accountable and make sense of this wild environment in which we spend most of our time. Thanks for hanging out.